We live in a culture obsessed with youth, a world where growing up is optional, where adulthood is delayed, and where the line between womanhood and girlhood has become strangely blurred. But what if this isn't just a personal issue? What if some women struggle to grow up, not because they're immature, but because society rewards their immaturity? This isn't about age, it's about emotional evolution. And when we dive into philosophy and depth psychology, we find something disturbing beneath the surface. Not every woman who looks like an adult has truly left behind the child within. Why is that? We often assume that reaching a certain age means reaching a certain level of wisdom, but age is a number, maturity is a process, and many never complete that process. Not because they don't want to, but because they were never shown how. Carl Jung proposed that every person contains unconscious archetypes, symbols and energies that shape our personality. One of them is the Puella Eterna, the eternal girl. She is playful, idealistic, spontaneous, but also afraid of responsibility, terrified of commitment, and addicted to escape. Many women unknowingly live out this archetype, and society encourages it. We praise women for being cute, not wise, desirable, not sovereign, forever young, but rarely ever whole. So what happens when someone is praised for never changing? They stop evolving. The eternal girl is not a personal flaw, she is a cultural phenomenon. Our media sells her as the ideal, the quirky, chaotic dream girl who needs saving, the soft-voiced influencer selling innocence as empowerment, the woman whose entire identity is built around being desired. This isn't just aesthetics, it's a psychological model. The philosopher Simone de Beauvoir warned us about this. In The Second Sex, she explained how society teaches women to see themselves through the eyes of others, never as subjects in their own right. When a woman's identity is based on being seen, she never truly becomes herself. And when girlhood is glamorized, maturity becomes unattractive. She learns to be agreeable, not authentic, to be pleasing, not powerful, to remain small even when the world needs her to grow. Segment 3. Emotional arrest. Why growth stops. Some women stop growing emotionally not by choice, but by necessity. Let's explore why. 1. Trauma disguised as personality. Some women experience early emotional wounds, abandonment, rejection, chaos. Instead of processing the pain, they adapt by becoming the fun one, the sweetheart, the people pleaser. The eternal girl becomes their survival costume. 2. Delayed individuation. Jung emphasized the importance of individuation, becoming a unique, integrated self. But individuation is hard. It requires confrontation, solitude, and the courage to disappoint others. Many avoid it entirely, clinging instead to relationships, trends, or roles that feel safe. 3. Conditional love. If you were only loved when you were cute, charming, or non-threatening, then growing up feels dangerous. Adulthood means asserting yourself, setting boundaries, making unpopular choices. But when your self-worth depends on approval, you learn to stay small. These women may look grown, but inside they feel unformed, uncertain, unfinished. Their inner world remains childlike, full of dreams but empty of direction. Segment 4. The fear of depth. Growing up isn't just about paying bills or getting married, it's about developing depth. Depth means facing your contradictions, owning your mistakes, and no longer blaming others for your unhappiness. But depth is scary. The eternal girl fears depth because depth means loss, loss of control, loss of the fantasy that someone else will fix everything, loss of the illusion that being nice is the same as being whole. Philosopher Søren Kierkegaard spoke of the dizziness of freedom, the overwhelming responsibility that comes with becoming yourself. Many run from this. They'd rather stay in the cocoon of youth than face the terrifying freedom of adulthood. But what's left in that cocoon? Anxiety, confusion, a longing for something more. Segment 5. The turning point. Eventually, the fantasy wears thin. The party gets old. The validation feels empty. The charm stops working. At this point a choice appears: cling to the old identity, or step into the unknown. This is what Carl Jung called shadow work, the painful but necessary process of confronting all the parts of ourselves we've denied. The jealous part, the angry part, the selfish part. The grown woman who's been buried under a mask of sweetness. Only by integrating these rejected parts can we become whole. It's not about rejecting the girl you once were. It's about honoring her, and then becoming someone even deeper. Someone who no longer waits for permission to exist. Segment 6. What real maturity looks like. True maturity isn't about becoming hard or cynical. It's about becoming responsible for your own life. A mature woman doesn't chase validation, she seeks meaning. Doesn't hide behind charm, she speaks with clarity. Doesn't fear solitude, she embraces it as a path to self-knowledge. Doesn't remain frozen in girlhood, she evolves into her full humanity. This is what philosopher Clarissa Pinkola Estes calls the wild woman archetype. A woman who knows herself deeply, loves fiercely, and no longer fits into society's narrow boxes. She has grown not despite pain, but because of it. She has left behind the eternal girl, and become eternal in a different way. By becoming real. So if you've ever felt stuck, if you've ever wondered why growing up feels so hard, know this: you're not broken, you're becoming. And sometimes the hardest part of maturity is simply letting go of who you were told to be, so you can finally become who you truly are. You do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Carl Jung. Segment 7. Addicted to innocence, the hidden currency of naivety. There's a strange economy in our society, a hidden marketplace where innocence is more valuable than wisdom. A woman who appears naive is often seen as more attractive, more approachable, more manageable. She's easier to mold, easier to sell to, easier to dismiss. The philosopher Michel Foucault might say, this is a form of soft control. When a society rewards women for appearing helpless, it's not empowering, it's manipulative. Because behind the curtain something darker is happening. The less a woman knows, the less she questions, the more childlike she behaves, the less she resists, the more dependent she becomes, the more easily she is consumed by systems, by partners, by ideologies. And here's the trap. Some women learn to weaponize their naivety. Not maliciously but unconsciously. They lean into the I don't know role. They wait for others to decide. They feign confusion as a way to avoid responsibility. Why? Because responsibility is terrifying. Because once you admit you know better, you're expected to do better. And that's a heavy burden for someone who's spent her whole life being told her power lies in staying small. Segment 8. Reparenting the self. So what's the path forward? How do women who've lived in this arrested state begin to evolve? The answer is not to shame the girl within. It's to reparent her. Psychologist Pete Walker talks about the importance of reparenting, learning to give yourself the things you didn't receive in childhood: unconditional love, boundaries, encouragement to think for yourself. This isn't self-help fluff, it's deep philosophical work. You become both the question and the answer, both the wound and the healer, both the frightened child and the calm, grounded adult who tells her, you're safe now, you're allowed to grow. You don't have to be cute, you don't have to be agreeable, you just have to be honest. And when a woman starts living from that place, she becomes something culture cannot control: whole. Segment 9. When maturity becomes magnetic. There's a myth that growing up makes women less attractive. But in reality, mature women are magnetic in a way that cannot be faked. They carry silence like a sword. They listen without needing to be liked. They speak from experience, not for applause. You know them when you see them. They're the ones who don't play games, who aren't threatened by younger women, who walk into a room not needing attention, but commanding respect. They've outgrown the craving for compliments, because they've grown into something deeper: self-respect. And that kind of power doesn't fade with age, it intensifies. The writer Anais Nin once said, "And the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom." This is what the world needs more of. Not women trying to stay in bloom forever, but women who are unafraid to wither, fall, compost, and rise again. Maturity is cyclical. It's not linear, it's seasonal. And every time a woman chooses to evolve, she steps into another form of beauty. Not the beauty of innocence, but the beauty of wisdom earned. Segment 10. Collective awakening, ending the performance. This isn't just about one woman, it's about all of us. We live in a time where superficial empowerment is everywhere. Hot girl healing, soft life era, main character energy. But behind the hashtags many are quietly suffering, performing confidence while secretly breaking down, chasing peace while avoiding responsibility, preaching self-love while staying addicted to external validation. This isn't empowerment, it's escapism dressed as enlightenment. Real empowerment begins when the performance ends. And for that to happen, we need to normalize the ugly parts of growth, the awkward conversations, the grief of letting go of identities that no longer fit, the discomfort of setting boundaries with people who liked us better small. We need to stop selling girlhood as empowerment and start celebrating true womanhood as the revolution it actually is. Not just for individuals, but for the collective psyche. Segment 11. The real revolution is inner evolution. To grow up is to disappoint the people who only liked the old version of you. To evolve is to say, "I love her, but I'm no longer her." To become a woman fully, deeply, and authentically is one of the most radical acts in a world that profits from your confusion. But here's the truth. You are not here to be consumed. You are not here to be cute forever. You are not here to play small so others feel big. You are here to become, to unravel, to unlearn, to reclaim, to choose yourself over and over without guilt. And when enough women do this, not just online but in their bones, something ancient awakens, a deeper wisdom, a fiercer presence, a maturity that no longer apologizes for being powerful. Closing narration. Becoming the woman you were meant to be. Maybe the question isn't, why do some women never grow up? Maybe the real question is, what happens when they finally do? The answer is not a fantasy, it's not a movie, it's not a neat resolution, it's messy, beautiful, painful, sacred. Because true growth isn't glamorous, it's quiet, it's slow, it's unseen by the world, but felt deeply by the soul. And maybe that's what womanhood really is, a return, not to who you were told to be, but to who you always were, beneath the performance, beneath the fear, beneath the girl who never got to grow up. Until now, she remembered who she was, and the game changed. La Delia. Segment 12. The inheritance we leave behind. Every woman who grows up, truly grows up, leaves a legacy. Not just of what she built or achieved, but of who she dared to become in a world that begged her to stay unfinished. You see, when a woman evolves, she shifts the blueprint. Her daughters, sisters, and even strangers feel the ripple. Suddenly what was once invisible becomes visible. What was once impossible becomes inevitable. Carl Jung believed that what is not made conscious is lived as fate. If we do not consciously grow up, we unconsciously pass down our pain. We hand off our unhealed wounds like heirlooms. Our silence, our fear of being too much, our belief that we must earn love by shrinking ourselves. But when we heal, we interrupt the pattern. We become the ancestor we never had. And that is no small task. It is spiritual labor. It is philosophical rebellion. It is choosing to become the woman your younger self was waiting for, and the woman future generations will never have to question, because her footsteps will already be carved into the path they now walk. Segment 13. Womanhood as initiation, not identity. Our culture sells womanhood like a costume, perfume, heels, long lashes, soft voices. But the ancient world had another idea. Womanhood was an initiation. It was something you entered, not something you performed. It meant crossing thresholds, from dependency to discernment, from approval-seeking to sovereignty, from innocence to intuition. In indigenous cultures, rites of passage marked this shift. In myth, we saw it in Persephone descending into the underworld, the girl who dies and returns as queen. But today, we've lost our rituals, and in their place we have branding: girl boss, wifey, baddie, pick-me, divine feminine. So many labels, so few rights, and maybe that's the root of our pain. We're not suffering because we're broken. We're suffering because we were never truly initiated into our power. Segment 14. Unlearning the myth of the ideal woman. Behind every woman's struggle to grow up is a myth she's still chasing. The ideal woman. She's perfect, always composed, never angry, effortlessly sexy, perpetually pleasing. She doesn't age, she doesn't need, she doesn't scare anyone. She's the ghost in every advertisement, the model in every self-help meme, the unreachable standard in every woman's mind. But here's the truth: she does not exist. She was created, engineered to keep women striving, buying, apologizing. And the moment you see her for what she is, an illusion, a distraction, a lie, you're free. Because when the myth dies, the real woman can finally live. And she is not perfect. She is powerful. She is not adored by all. She is deeply respected by herself. And that changes everything. Segment 15. The sacredness of growing slowly in an age of speed. Growing slowly is an act of defiance. True maturity doesn't come from reading the right books or saying the right things online. It comes from staying in the discomfort long enough to transform. From making the call instead of ghosting. From apologizing with depth. From choosing boundaries over people-pleasing. From sitting with your shame until it no longer defines you. And most of all, from letting go of the version of yourself who needed to be saved. That girl is not weak. She got you here, but she is not your final form. And every time you pause, reflect, and choose differently, you are doing something holy. You are becoming, not in a loud Instagrammable way, but in the quiet, cellular way of the earth herself, where nothing blooms all year, where stillness is sacred, where becoming a woman is not a moment, but a lifelong unfolding. Closing meditation. To the girl who thought she had to stay small. If this is you, if you're still playing the role, still waiting to be chosen, still afraid that growing up means growing unloved, let this be your permission slip. You are not here to be everyone's cup of tea. You are not here to be palatable. You are not here to stay in the cage just because it's decorated nicely. You are here to awaken, to step out of the costume, to walk barefoot into the unknown, to become the woman no one saw coming, because even you weren't sure you were allowed to exist, but you are, and your very existence, in your fullness, is the medicine someone else needs to remember. That maturity is not the end of beauty, it's the beginning of truth. I stopped shrinking to be digestible. I took up space. I stood tall. I spoke the truth, and it was terrifying, and it was beautiful, and I was finally free. Author unknown.
Epilogue. The return to the inner throne. There comes a moment in every woman's path, not marked by applause or milestones, but by silence. A sacred silence that says, "You have arrived." Not because the world approved of you, not because you finally became good enough, thin enough, soft enough, but because you remembered who you were before the world began carving pieces off. In mythology, this is known as the return. After descent, after trial, after transformation, the heroine comes home, but she does not return the same. She comes back with medicine, with vision, with power earned, not borrowed. She has reclaimed her inner throne, and that throne isn't made of gold or praise, it's made of integrity, of boundaries held, of truths spoken, of the quiet dignity of a woman who no longer abandons herself to be loved. This is not self-help, this is self-initiation, and when you claim that throne, something radical happens. You no longer seek the crown in someone else's eyes.
You wear it invisibly, gracefully, because the deepest kind of power is the kind that doesn't need to prove itself. Because in the end, this is not a story about becoming who the world wants you to be. It's about unbecoming everything you're not, so that what remains is the wild, luminous truth of the woman you were always meant to become.